I could see the problem as we drove south on Northwestern, heading to the intersection with the expressway. First, you see a sign on the right which tells you there is an access road to East 240 and 66. When you travel a little further and enter the turn lane for East 240 and 66, you see another sign with the same directions. However, right behind it is a sign indicating no left turn. That not only causes problems for motorists wanting to go east, it also restricts the access to Bentley Furniture, which is along that access road.
Well, since the city or state, whoever's end it is, to install these signs, it kind of restricts our traffic flow to our building. It gives you one way down to the access road. And for the people trying to enter the highway, it's illegal for them to make the turn.
And that is the easiest access to your store, isn't it?
Well, basically the only access to the store from the north end of town.
Have your customers been saying anything about it?
Well, not much, except they can't get here.
Have you had contact with anybody in the transportation department about it?
Nobody in the transportation department. They've been notified by our city councilman. But they created a problem by just putting no left turn signs up, so you just don't turn there. They built all the access road, but made it so you can't use it.
Well, even though the sign says no left turn, apparently many motorists don't believe it because they still turned left to 240 and 66 east off of Western. However, if they didn't turn here, it would be several miles and several more intersections to get on 240 east. Well, I brought the matter to the attention of the City Transportation Department. An analyst there, Bill Huey, told me he'd check into the matter. He said he remembered that the sign had been knocked down at one time. He said apparently when workmen put it back up, they faced it in the wrong direction. He said it should be facing towards the west side access road, coming away from Bentley Furniture, going towards Western Avenue. And he said it is not to be facing traffic going southbound on Western, trying to turn east onto the expressway or down to Bentley Furniture. And he said the sign has been turned around now in the correct direction, as you can see. Kristle had just gotten out of the hospital not long before I met her and her mother, Marcia. Kristle suffers from asthma, and it turned into pneumonia last December, then again in February. She still has a small spot on her lung, but is well enough to be at home. Kristle is an only child, and because of her illness cannot play outside with other children very often. And that's why her mother wanted a pet for Kristle, one that would not affect her allergies. That narrowed the choice to a short-haired Mexican Chihuahua. However, hospital bills and the price of Chihuahuas prevented her from getting Kristle a pet.
I've seen them advertised for $200, $250, somewhere around that area. And right now, we just don't have it.
In Your Corner began a Chihuahua search and found one here at the Oklahoma City Animal Shelter. Thelma Packard said a black and white short-haired Chihuahua had been brought in. By the rules, they had to hold her for 48 hours before putting her up for adoption. But time was up now, and the little dog was ready for adoption. When I arrived, the dog had been bathed and received all its shots, but it was a bundle of nerves. When's the last time she's been out? They packed the Chihuahua in a carrying box to get her ready for the trip to Kristle's house. The employees had already taken care of buying the license, and they said if it turned out that the dog became ill or that it affected Kristle's allergies, we could bring the dog back to the adoption center. I reached Kristle's house and more just as she returned from a treatment at the hospital. Hey, Kristle. How you doing? We got something for you in this box. Would you like to open it?
I just want to wait for a while.
Kristle wasn't too sure she wanted to open that box, but we convinced her that she should see what was inside. You can see what's in there, okay? Oh, look at that.
Look at that.
You know what that is? Well, it took Kristle a little while to get her courage up to pet the dog that she had already decided to name Cricket, but when she got over her shyness, the two got along fine.
So shaky.
I know.
If you pet her, she might quit shaking.
Yeah. An official of the Oklahoma Lung Association told In Your Corner there appears to be some connection between Mexican Chihuahuas and children with asthma. It's been the topic of discussion for years, they say, but it seems to help the children, or at least does not cause an allergic reaction. So the question now will be whether or not cricket will have a positive effect on Kristle, or if it will cause an allergic reaction. We should know in a few days. But for now, Marcia is pleased that Kristle has a playmate to help keep her spirits up, and I found that Kristle seemed to be happy with her new playmate as well.
Well, just how about a hug?
There we go. All right.
She gives big hugs.
Thank you. That's real nice. This is Ninnekah, Oklahoma, southeast of Chickasha, a growing community with a growing need for water. The Ninnekah Water Corporation is financed by the Farmers Home Administration in Duncan. But one resident, Carolyn Fisher, thinks she is financing the water company unfairly, and she doesn't understand why. She's been trying to find out why her December water bill was higher than all the other months, and her water usage was higher than her normal usage for an entire year.
Well, like I said, we use about 30,000 gallons of water a year. This is saying that we use 69,500 gallons in 1 month. So that's twice the amount we use in a year's time. So there's just, I can't see myself how that much water is going to go out of a, well, they said maybe one of my children left the water faucet on. Well, that thing is going to have to run day and night for more than a month for 69,000 gallons of water.
Sure.
And it just, well, there was, like I said, there's no water standing anywhere.
Carolyn took her problem to the monthly meeting of the Ninnekah Water Board, but she claims they wanted her to pay the bill. She thinks it's wrong because even in January, when her pipes froze and burst, she said her bills were back at the normal level. But Carolyn isn't even sure how the company reads her water meter.
Well, I come out to check the meter, which I told them at the meetings I was going to start watching the meter because after the high bill, and I had to dig. It was completely full of dirt, and as you've seen, it's at least a foot and a half down before you get to the meter, and it was completely full. And this was just a few days, I'd say 2 or 3 days after they were supposed to have read the meter. And it was.
And you had to dig it out to see it.
Oh yes, I had. In fact, I was out here probably 30 minutes of digging it out. You know.
Carolyn says the meters are a sore spot for some Ninnekah residents. They pay a few $100s to get a meter. That's a membership fee to get in the water system. But some residents allege the water board is selective on who gets a meter since the system is only large enough to handle a certain amount of residents. Well, I tried to contact the water company several times during the day, but there was no answer. It reportedly is operated out of the home of water board president Billy Joe Bennett. Some residents allege Bennett's family members put the meters in and also read them. I could not reach Bennett or 2 other members of the water board we called. However, I talked by phone with Leon Ferris of the Farmers Home Administration, which has some regulation over the Ninnekah Water Corporation because of their financing. Ferris told me they have not found a clear reason for Carolyn's high water bill, but said it was possible to use 69,000 gallons in a month if somebody left the water running. He said she could have had the meter checked for malfunction, but Carolyn says she didn't know when the company pulled the meter out. However, Ferris says if any resident has a complaint against the water board that can be substantiated, he will launch an investigation. Earlier this week, we heard from Dan Heinen. Dan had purchased Braniff Airlines Dollar Special, the first ticket at regular price, the second for $1. Dan used the first ticket with no problem in March. He saved his second ticket for a skiing trip to Lake Tahoe over Easter weekend.
I called Thursday to confirm everything, because on the tickets they leave everything open.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make sure I was confirmed. And she said that I was confirmed for going out Friday and coming back Sunday. And so everything went fine going out. came Sunday and went to the ticket booth there in Reno, and they didn't have my name or anything like it.
Fortunately, Dan had a credit card with him. He had to buy a $145 ticket back to Dallas. Braniff couldn't help him there because his reservation information was not on their computer either. However, they flew him back to Oklahoma City free. I checked with the Braniff sales office in Dallas. After a 3-day search of computer information, Dana Wakefield told me Dan's reservations were registered on the main computer but did not feed out to the field computers. Braniff decided to reimburse Dan for the $145 he had to pay out of his own pocket to get back from Reno. In Your Corner thanks Braniff for the expense they went to in searching down that information. A week ago, In Your Corner found a Chihuahua for 4-year-old Kristle Watts of Moore. Kristle is an asthma patient who has spent most of the last few months in the hospital with pneumonia, enough to get anybody down. Her mother, Marcia, said since Kristle is an only child and unable to go out and play with other children, she wanted a pet for Kristle. She said she had heard Chihuahuas were good for children with asthma and that her doctor approved it. However, the cost prevented her from buying one. In Your Corner checked with the city animal shelter, which had a Chihuahua they would give to Kristle, and we delivered it to her. However, Marcia said she heard from another doctor, a pulmonary specialist, who said there is nothing to the old wives' tale about Chihuahuas and children with asthma.
She mentioned something about having a dog.
Yeah.
And he had also saw her on TV. And he wasn't really mad, but he was very firm. He said she cannot have a dog, a cat, or anything like that that has fur or feathers or anything, because it's not. He said, he was trying to explain it to me, it was not the hair on the dog, it was the dander that most people with allergies or even asthma are allergic to. So he said, not that I don't want her to have the dog or to have pets, but that's the way it is when you have asthma.
So, In Your Corner had the unpleasant duty of taking little Kristle's pet dog away from her. But Kristle seemed to understand. We hated to take it back to the animal shelter, so I found a neighbor who had been looking for a Chihuahua. We gave Cricket to Karen Martin. In the meantime, we're looking for a non-allergenic pet for Kristle, perhaps a goldfish. In Your Corner heard this week from Carolyn Yeager Everett, who was trying to get food stamps. Carolyn is blind. She was a rubella baby and over the years had to have both eyes removed. She is divorced now and trying to make it on her Social Security disability check. Not quite enough to cover rent and food, but she had some trouble getting food stamps.
Then nothing was happening, and that was about 2 more weeks. And so I called him about 2 or 3 days ago, and he was just really rude to me, and told me not to call him anymore, that he couldn't do his work with people calling him all the time and all this other kind of stuff.
In Your Corner contacted welfare officials who said a computer problem caused a delay in Karen's food stamps, but they would be mailed out the next day. However, Carolyn said they sent the stamps out in her maiden name, Yeager, but the identification card they gave her was in her married name, Everett, so the food stamps would not match her identification card and could not be used. In Your Corner checked again with the welfare department. Officials said they would send out a new ID card with the right name today. Bill Holland is a graduate music student at OU who's been living at the Belvedere Apartments on Elm. He says he pays $185 rent per month and a maintenance fee. But Bill wants to know, where's the maintenance?
So it might not look too bad from the outside, the inside is just deplorable. Not only are the structure itself some places falling apart, but the inside hasn't been maintained or cleaned for more than a month.
Okay, now, according to the lease, who does this?
Well, according to the lease, paragraph 40, it's the lessor's obligation to keep all the public areas clean and sanitary.
Pam Rollins, a sophomore business major who also lives here, says the conditions are anything but sanitary.
Well, there's a central kitchen that everybody uses, and it's filthy. There's trash in the sinks and on the floor. And there's one women's restroom, and it has the trash in the floor and the sinks that have been cleaned, and the bathtub with just filth in it. You can't clean up there at all.
Both Bill and Pam said they have complained to the former owners, Mayberry property, with no response, and to the present owners, the University of Oklahoma. They said they got no response until the day we were there. A crew had arrived and was cleaning up while we toured the building. And there is a lot of cleaning up to do. In the kitchen area, Bill pointed out that the gas range was of questionable safety.
There were times during the winter that I'd come into the apartment house late at night and I'd smell gas, and I'd come into the kitchen and see what was happening in the kitchen. And some students had turned the oven on in the burners and in the oven itself for some heat, because heat this winter was sporadic along with everything else. And so this place is like a tinderbox. It would go up in 10 seconds. So I'd come in and I'd just shut it down. And then there'd be times that one of my friends would come down about maybe a half hour later and say that somebody had turned it back on.
Pam said she used the kitchen very little because it was just too filthy. Is the sink always like this, Pam?
It has been, just since for a few months, it has been since I came in.
Bill and Pam said there was more filth upstairs in the community restrooms on each floor, not to mention stopped-up sewers and leaking pipes. Well, Bill speculated the former owners lost interest in the maintenance when they planned to sell the building to the university. He said the lease, which called for landlord maintenance, was still in effect even after the sale, but he claimed he couldn't get a commitment on maintenance from the university, and that's why he called In Your Corner. I reached Housing Director Jim Martin by phone. He told me that campus maintenance crews were so busy he had to find a commercial crew to clean that building, and that's why it took so long. Martin said the entire building had to be renovated to meet university standards, and that will be started when the students' leases are up May 31st. Until that time, he said maintenance crews would pick up garbage each week and clean the building every 2 weeks. Billy Mae Carley told me money doesn't come easily at her age, so when she paid $875 to have her leaky roof fixed, she expected it to be fixed, and she expected no more leaks. Now, you hired this man to, originally, to patch this flat part of the roof.
Patch the leaks. That's all he was hired for. But when he came out here, he talked so nice and talked like he'd guarantee his work and everything. I said, go ahead and put a new roof on the whole thing, because it was kind of curled up. It wasn't leaking.
Yeah.
But you know how the sun will curl the shingles up eventually. Now, I've just lived here 4 years. I don't know how long the roof had been on there.
From an ad, Billy Mae hired the Taff Roofing company. They were to patch leaks on the flat part of the roof. Then she decided to let them put new roofing on the peaked part of the roof. Now, that was fine. It was the patch job on the flat part she takes issue with.
I could hear it leaking, and I came out, and it was dripping down there, and the carpet was all wet. So was this. And that's it.
What did you think when you saw that?
I thought he lied to me.
How so?
Because he didn't fix the leaks.
Oh, yeah. See tar leaking down there, too. And does it fill those up?
Yes, and I have to empty them several times.
Billy Mae says not only are the old leaks still dripping when it rains, there is now a new leak.
All right, this one right here.
And this
It was not here before he worked. This was not here. Now, it leaked there in that nail hole. I always had to have a pan there, and out there at the door.
Yes.
And I thought that it was running back and running in on this sheetrock, but this came after he was here and worked.
Did you talk to him about it?
Well, at first he said that he had been out here. I said, you've got to come out here when I'm home so you can see where the water is coming inside, so you'll know more where to look for it on top. And I've called him about 4 times, and he's always tied up. He can't make it. And finally, the last time I called him, he said, well, I guess you'll have to get someone else. I can't fix it.
In Your Corner contacted the Taff Roofing Company. Gary Taff said there are a great deal of problems with flat roofs. He said he tried to patch Billy Mae's, but he thinks she needs a new roof on the flat part. He said if it was still leaking, he would refund the money for that patch job. Bob Brady of Moore said he got curious when he saw an advertisement to get a MasterCard or a Visa credit card even if you have bad credit. Well, Bob already has all the credit cards he needs, but he wanted to find out how a company called National Security Credit Foundation in San Antonio, Texas, could provide credit cards for someone who could never get one before.
I got this letter and an application form, a simple application form that had my name and address and phone number. And I filled that out, attached a check to it, and mailed it back to them with the idea that I would be guaranteed a Visa card or MasterCard from this letter.
Okay, on this application form, what kind of questions did it ask? They want to know how you made a living, how much money you made, any credit references?
None. Very general questions: name, address, telephone number, city and state, wife's name.
Bob had sent the company $9.95, and a few days later he received his canceled check. But that was the last he heard from the National Security Credit Foundation. He wrote them letters asking for a refund, but no response. Bob even called San Antonio Information and found there was no company listed by that name, giving him that "I've been taken" feeling.
Well, I think basically it's some scheme to bilk people out of their money. Younger people, older people, people that don't have credit. It looks like an easy way for someone to get $10 to $12 out of people with minimum amount of strain.
Bob checked into a few more easy credit card ads. He said they are usually advertised in the newspaper, such as this classified ad under Business Personals. A company called Research Unlimited in Oklahoma City guarantees you a Visa or MasterCard if you're over 18. But beware, telephone information lists no such company. All you have to go by is a box number. How can you check out the legitimacy of such a company? Many of the other companies work out of Texas, but all offer the same. Since these offers go through the mail, I paid a visit to the local postal inspector to see if the credit card offers are under investigation.
Normally you cannot get credit cards without some type of credit check. Now what these people are requiring is some of the institution will require $1,000 in deposit. And your credit, see, that way they're not going to lose any money. Your credit's going to be limited to that $1,000.
W.E. Pugsley says when you receive the packet of information from one of these companies, it lists a few savings institutions that will work with them on getting you a credit card. But he adds that some of the companies are victims themselves.
He's been sold a bill of goods because whoever sold him the packet said, oh, you know, these people will take all that you send them in. But I'll guarantee them locally, there's no plastic card company going to issue without a credit check, and even these people will make some type of credit check.
The postal inspector said if he receives a complaint, he can investigate, and if a company's found fraudulent, he can get a court order to stop money being sent to the company.
Just because the ad says that they're guaranteed the issuance of credit card, that they are not necessarily, it's not a certainty.
Monty and Patricia Buchanan say they filed their income tax forms in January, anticipating a $985 refund to help support them. But after a 10-week wait, they began to get worried and called up the local IRS office. Monty said they told them a refund check had been issued, but for some reason the post office sent it back to the IRS. However, they sent him a taxpayer's statement to fill out and send in to them to get his check back. Monty said the statement said to send along his forms with the paper, so he included his second copies of his W-2 forms.
I called them back, and I told them, I said, it's been 2.5 weeks since we sent that in, and we still ain't heard nothing. So they run through their computer and everything, and they come back and they said, well, we lost your forms. So they said, we're going to have to send you out another form to fill out, and said it'll take, when it comes back, it'll take 3 or 4 weeks to get, your check started out to you.
After Monty received his second taxpayer statement, he started to send it in, but was out of W-2 forms, which he thought was required. It did say to send in your forms, and by this time, Monty and his wife were suffering some financial problems because of the delay.
We're in desperate need, you know, and we've put our car up and everything. We put our car up for $100, and without this check, we can't pay the $100 back, and they'll take our car.
Yeah.
And I'll just be, you know, up creek.
In Your Corner took the question to the IRS Problems Resolution Department to find out what was causing the delay. IRS officials would not interview on camera, but first of all, the Problems Resolution Office told In Your Corner they don't know why Monty Buchanan's tax refund was returned to the Treasury Department. Second of all, they said the taxpayer statement that Monty was required to fill out to try and get his tax refund back did not require the submission of extra W-2 forms, as Monty had thought. According to the IRS, the forms mentioned on that taxpayer statement referred to other tax schedules. However, no one explained that to Monty. He assumed he needed more W-2 forms, and he had no more to send in. Well, IRS officials asked Monty to submit one more taxpayer statement and felt this time they could get his refund to him in less than 10 days, hopefully before his payment is due on the loan he took out on his car. A loan he says he had to take out because his $985 tax refund never showed up.